Hello, it is on and popping. I'm getting all ready, set up. Bam. What up, crew? What's good? Welcome to another episode of the Crew Book Club podcast, okay? Where I read the books you should read, but don't have the time to. Listen, honey, it has been a week of preparation. I like an intention. By the time you listen to this episode, I would have gone to the Woman Evolve. So tune in next week to hear me talk about it, because I needed to record this week's episode early so I could be prepared to be so intentional and focused for my trip coming up, which I fly out tomorrow. So I'm recording this the Tuesday before me flying out to DC on the 13th. So you'll be listening to it today, Monday, the 18th, if I'm not mistaken. I am not looking at a calendar. And I'll talk about my trip next week. But if you've been following, you kind of got like a sneak peek of some things. Okay. Baby, let me tell y'all, you definitely need to be, shout out to the people that follow me on Instagram and that be locked in on the live, that be locked in on the on looking at the stories, and just lock it in, because I know y'all been feeling this other book that I'm doing for this community. I'm not doing this book on the podcast, but I discussing it on our Instagram, The Tongue of Creative Force, because I'm doing a book review for another community. But this book, baby, is giving me all the words, okay? How to speak power into my life and making sure what's coming out of my tongue align with the word of God. So that way I am moving strategically out here in these streets. Do you feel what I'm saying? We, God and I, okay? So I'm that book is, whew, okay? Now, today in our episode of the Crew Book Club podcast, we will be getting into our book that we're currently doing, which was motivated by another community, the community that I'm a part of on accountability call. We discussed the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. This is why it's so important to just get involved with groups that God leads you to, because it literally is aligning with everything that He has me doing, okay? So be intentional. If you realize that what you're surrounding yourself with isn't aligning with the path that God had promised you, you need to check your circle. That's what we discussed last week on who in your top 5. Like, did y'all really evaluate the top 5 people that you spend your time with? Are you looking? Are they where you're trying to be, or going in the same direction that you're trying to go? Do they support that? And oh, this just came to me. Thank you, Holy Spirit. The people, even though there's people that support you, there's a circle for that. Just recognize sometimes they don't have the capacity to see beyond your dream. They just see you in the right now. Like, a lot of times I make my friends are my audience. I see them in them, how I talk and how we associate. That's what the crew comes from. At the same time, they don't really see beyond the business. Like, they're not business coaches. They don't specialize in entrepreneurship. They're the audience who can give me feedback. But a lot of times they just confirm what I've already done. It's very rare that I get like critical feedback that can affect my bottom line. You understand what I'm saying? So you might have your top 5 who support you, but I'm talking about, look at the top 5 who can actually help you grow. Are you the smartest person in the room? Okay, I'm gonna give you the side eye. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. That's why I'm seeking groups that, one, support the foundation of faith, and 2, who can support and push me to the level that God has aligned with me. So, for me. So, you know what I'm saying? My top 5, tight, all right? So, and also, that doesn't mean that top 5 has to be my best of friends. I touch bases with them daily, but we not having late night conversations. You know what I'm saying? But I'm in a safe space. If I wanted to, I could, but that doesn't make it the basis of the people that I'm talking about in this particular top 5. Anyway, go back, listen to last week's episode. All right. Episode 92. Now, today with the book, we're in chapter 7, the law of design. Yes. And then chapter 8, the law of pain. Ooh, let's talk about it. But first, let's get into the first segment of the show. Who gonna check me, boo? God is. He is always checking us, and we deserve a good check. Zinc. You feel me? Okay, this check comes from my one and only pastor, Tim Timberlake, at Celebration, Jacksonville, Florida. Oh, super dope blessing. My mom went with me to church Sunday. It was super amazing. We had a great time. And she was like, I like him. I was like, that's a big deal coming from my mama now. Okay. In the scripture he preached was Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 through 6. And the series is called Keep the Change. I will have the link to this particular sermon in the show notes. And the subject title was the discipline of a disciple. I was just like, oh my goodness, come for me. So first, the verse that I want to the scripture that I want to focus on is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 through 2. And it reads, if you fully obey the Lord your God and carefully follow all his commands I give you today, the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations on earth. All these blessings will come on you and accompany you if you obey the Lord your God. Yeah. That word fully checked me. You hear me? When he was preaching, he said, well, first of all, what is obedience? He stated, obedience is doing God's will and God's way and God's timing. Okay? Not one or the other. It's all three. Will, way, and time. All God. Okay? And then he said, partial obedience is still obedience. So I had to ask myself said, are you being obedient in all things, or are you just being obedient in some things? Because partial obedience is still obedience. And I was just like, come for me. And I feel like one of the areas that I needed to be obedient in to get to the next level, God had made it very clear, it's finances. So if you know real estate, my commission come when it come from the work that I put in, but it's also like you know, but you don't know. And sometimes I've had people pull out literally the day of closing. So that $10,000 check I thought I was getting did not come. And so when people understand in real estate, we just out here balling. No, a lot of them balling in debt. That's what they balling in. And I was one of them. And so God was like, I cannot give you more if you don't steward the little. That's scripture. But I felt like, oh, I was doing so good over here. I'm obedient over here. And this scripture was like, oh, ma'am, all things fully obedient, fully. Are you being fully obedient? So I'm going to ask you, sis, are you being fully obedient? What do you need to be obedient in? Because I know mine. And mine is finances. And the funny part was, I told my husband that, I think I said this on another episode, but like that day, two things. The first thing was, the other week, my plants keep dying. My big plant keep dying in my living room because I don't get direct sunlight in my house, but I have a lot of windows. And so I was like, I'm going to find me a really nice fake plant and put it in a corner and call it a day. That plant was $180. And I told my husband, I said, well, I'm not going to buy material things for 6 months. And he was just like, okay, I see you. Y'all, he saw that plant. He said, baby, I thought you wasn't buying material things. I said, well, no, I said shirt, shoes, like clothes, materials, because I'm whoever my size, I'm giving some stuff away, whoever like a 2-4. And maybe if you were 6, you might be able to fit some stuff. So reach out to me if you need some denim. Anywho, so I was like, I'm not buying these things. And God convicted me. He said material things. That is a material thing. So girl, I literally searched in the trash. Thank God I didn't take the trash out, that particular trash out. And I found the receipt, and I put the tree in my trunk on the way to church because I was like, I'm returning the tree. I'm gonna be obedient, even in the small things. And so I get into church and I'm like, oh, see, I'm already taking a tree bag, God. And then I come to find out that it was Mission Sunday. Let's understand the story. Let me bring you back. So Saturday, before this Sunday, I was doing a vision workshop, and a lady that was at the vision workshop recognized me from serving at the door at my church. And we're talking, and come to find out she does mission work, and she just came back from Turkey, if I'm not mistaken. And we're talking, I'm like, oh yes, I wanted to do mission, yada yada yada. She was like, oh yes, you should do it. And I said, well, child, when God presented to me, I'll do it. I come in Sunday, find out it is Mission Sunday, and he talking about obedience. And I looked at my mama and I said, I was just talking about this yesterday. And after service, I signed up for mission. So I know God will provide. If it's meant for me to go, he'll provide. And the amazing part was, at the mission table, they had like all these different missions lined up. I didn't pull my mission. The pastor who's over the mission ministry pulled the card, and I turned it around, and the card is to Zimbabwe. Mind y'all, the child that I started sponsoring last year, and I'm about to cry because God will give you these little signs, and they don't add up until they supposed to add up. And I sacrificed. It is not a huge expense to sponsor a child. It was $39. And I was just like, things were tight for me at the time. And I said, I'm going to commit to this. And God going to make sure I can pay for it. So it's been about a year I've been paying that monthly to her. So to come and to be given a card that says Zimbabwe, I just felt like that was his way of confirming I already started planting this seed for you. So that really hit me, and that it checked me, y'all. And so the moment that you open up your heart to allow God to check you, he gonna do it. And it's not something by surprise. He's so intentional, and he strategically brings things together. I was telling my coach a few weeks ago, I said, I can literally see God pulling pieces. You ever watch those movies where it's like super high tech and they're like moving stuff around the screen to put things together? And that's what I see, guys. I literally see his hands just moving things, and I'm just watching him. And it's like this image of protection with his arms around me, and he's just doing the work. And I'm just sitting there, head up high, and all watching him put these pieces together. So I'm asking you, and I'm challenging you to be obedient to the smallest things. And sis, don't shortchange yourself by being partially obedient. And I encourage you to be fully obedient and do the last thing that God told you to do that makes no sense. And do that and start there. So that was a Who Gon' Check Me Boo segment. I hope that checked you, child, as much as it checked me in this moment again. Okay? So I love a good check. You know, another person who I like that kind of will check me or make me feel like they're checking me, but it's really me checking myself, is when I'm working with a therapist. A therapist will have you having a whole moment. And I had one therapist that would look at me like, you caught it. So I recommend therapy. And this is why we have a partnership with BetterHelp.com. You can literally get 10% off your first month of therapy. I've had a few people try. I've had a few people like it, and I had a few people who didn't like it. But let me tell you about the people who didn't like it. The people who didn't like it didn't try. I literally had somebody tell me, was like, well, I didn't want that person to know my business. I'm like, well, girl, that's like going to the doctor, telling them you sick, but not telling them what's really going on, the truth, so they can actually fix it. And so it will work if you work it. Okay? That's all I got to say about it. For real. And also, the people who liked it were the people who may not have liked maybe the first therapist they had, and they tried another person until they found their person. So I appreciate BetterHelp. They're easy to work with. They're professional therapists. This is not an emergency hotline. Don't use it. And I did that before, and I had to check myself in that. But once I took therapy serious, it really helped me. Trust me, ask my husband. Okay? So click the link in the show notes, betterhelp.com/crewlove. And I think if you go on the website independently and it actually who referred you, you can scroll down or type in the Crew Book Club and you'll find you can tap us in there. Okay, I appreciate it, but this helps me help you. That's it. That's what I'm here for. That's Crew Love. Okay, that's my Crew Love to you. So chapter 7, okay, from John C. Maxwell book, the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. Whew, I want to just hop right into it. In the beginning of the chapter, he says, to maximize growth, develop strategy. Oh, okay, that's being about that action. You feel me? Jen Rowan said, if you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what? They may have planned for you not much. So why not? Let's make our own strategies and plan with God so it can be much. You feel me? All right, so I want to just talk about the life lessons. It starts on page 103, and I have it highlighted. It said, but life has a way of becoming complicated, and it is only through great effort that we can keep it simple. Effort is an action word. So you can't just be sitting there thinking a great life gonna come. No, it don't relate it. Okay. What do we say? We said God is a God of action. Walk by faith. All right. So we got to get the walking. Get the walking, girl. Get the walking. All right. So the life lessons, the first life lesson he has was just that life is very simple, but keeping it that way is very difficult. So that's why you got to have an action. So that was the first one. Number 2, designing your life is more important than designing your career. This is really cool. So Oscar winner actress Reese Witherspoon said, many people worry so much about managing their careers, but rarely spend much of their energy managing their lives. I want to make my life, not just my job, the best it can be. The rest will work itself out. This reminds me of Gary Keller. We were on a virtual with him, and owner of Keller Williams. And he was like, every year he puts all his family activities on his calendar first, then work. And he literally will buy stuff in advance. And if he can't, like if an emergency comes up and he can't go, he'll give the tickets away. But I started doing that this year. I planned parties that I'm a host. I plan trips that I'm going to take, my mission trip to Zimbabwe. Like, those are the things that's going to go on first, because I feel like that will give me that extra push to do the things that are most important. Okay. Life lesson number 3, he wrote, life is not a dress rehearsal. Okay. It says, yet that's the way many people seem to be treating it on page 105. Each of us goes on stage cold with no preparation, and we have to figure out as we go along. That can be messy. We fail, we make mistakes, but we still need to give it our best from the very start. This is not improv, or at least it should not be. Life should not be an improv. You know that, have you ever done improv before? I challenge you, because improv will have you thinking on your feet, but that is not what life should be about, okay? Let's be more strategic. I like to say, let's be more effective and efficient, okay? Number 4, in planning your life, multiply everything by 2. I really like this. It says, if I think something will take me an hour to do, I plan for double to stay out of trouble. If I think a project will take a week to accomplish, I allow 2. If I think a goal will require a $1,000 fund, I set aside $2,000. 2 isn't a magic number. It just seems to work for me. I found that multiplying everything by 2 infuses realism into my optimism. Okay? That practice will help you keep you from becoming discouraged and giving up too soon. That's why it's just like, I was on a call about, and someone mentioned they were reading about someone who doesn't set goals anymore. Because, and I think he talked about it in this book as well. It's like when you set a goal, when you get there, it's like what happens next? Do you set a new goal when you get to that goal? But instead of looking at it as a goal, look at it as a journey. So when you're preparing for that journey, you know how you pack to go out of town and you might take an extra outfit because you're just trying to be prepared? Think of your life as that same way. We be putting so much energy into the wrong things. Oh, I need to make sure I have extra this and that because we might go here, there, and the other. But how about we have an extra this and that in place to make sure our life goes the way it should go? And we're being more strategic and more prepared for we're in the direction that we're going in our life in totality, not in just these improv moments. Okay? All right. So that was 4 of them. But within number 4, it kind of broke down these different types of systems. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through each one, but I'm going to tell you them so you can grab the book. That link is in the show note as well to buy the book. These are effective systems he focused on, pages 110 through 116. What systems should include? It should include effective systems take the big picture into account. Effective systems must use of priorities. Effective systems include measurement. Effective systems include application. Effective systems employ organization. Effective systems promote consistency. Those are your effective system starting kits. Okay? So, big picture, use of priorities, measurement, application, organization, and consistency. Read that part of the book in detail because I feel like a lot of people don't focus on the systems. And I was just telling a group the other day, I had to take a break from my business to make sure I had the systems in place to support the influx that I want God to give to my business. God, like, you asking for me to provide $3.2 million in real estate, but do you even have the systems in place to support the business that I want to give you? Okay, sis, you want to go from making what to what, but have you done the things that will support that? And so it's like getting back to the basics. You feel what I'm saying? So systems are really, really important. Okay, let's jump into there's so much in this book, y'all. I highly recommend getting it in detail. You can listen to it, which is cool. But getting this book to really highlight and break these things down and do the exercises in the book, because at the end of each chapter, he gives you at least 1 to 3 opportunities to apply the chapters. Okay? Now, chapter 8, the law of pain. Whew, I even said that scared. Pain. It says good management of bad experience leads to great growth. Okay? Listen, think about all the times that catapulted you into the next season that you're in. It probably came from a place of, I don't have no choice but to get out. And you had to make it happen. And so that pain pushed you into another dimension. Okay? It talks about his pain file, because he files them. If you read the book, that's another system, how he files his life. And he mentioned a few of them, but I want to focus on 2. The pain of hard decisions. It says wanting everyone to be happy and making tough decisions are incomparable tasks. I learned that good leadership is disappointing people at a rate they can stand. Wow. Look, if you're on the YouTube channel, you can kind of see there's a bunch of lists, but I'm focusing on these 2. And when I read the pain of hard decision, it was just like, it's like giving people grace and doing what's best for them, because it's doing what's best for your business or what's best for your life. You feel what I'm saying? Sometimes we gotta cut certain people off and it might disappoint them. But if you do it gracefully and with love, they'll be able to stand it and to have an understanding. Okay? The other is that I felt hit me was the pain of relationship losses. Striving to reach my potential has separated me from friends who had no desire to grow. As I developed new friendships, I learned to build relationships with growing people who wanted to take the journey with me. This is dope. This is dope. Because it makes you, I'm not saying that the circle that you with can't be your friends, and I don't think he was saying that. It's just the energy that you put into a relationship should reflect the direction that you're trying to go. So that way there's minimum hating, there's minimum concern of waste of time. Because if you're building relationships with people who are going into a similar higher direction than you, then there's just certain things that you won't waste time talking about. I'm trying to tell you. There's some people, when I see them, I'd be like, go the other way, because I know they're going to suck the energy out of me. And because they're constantly coming from a negative mindset, or they constantly have excuses on why this and why that, or it's always something. You ever meet them people? It's like, well, I want to do this, but and I'd be like, okay, well, do this. Well, that, it's like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. When they come into the room, I don't even ask no questions no more. I don't. I just be like, oh, here they go again. And sometimes that can be painful. And I remember I had someone, oh, you don't call me like that no more. I'd be like, for what? And one friend I really cared about enough to tell her, I was like, every time you call me about this guy, it's always the same thing. And I love you, but if you're not taking the action to make a change, please don't bother me with that. Take that straight to Jesus. He has the capacity. I don't. I'm for real, y'all. I'm for real. And I feel like that's out of love. I feel like that's out of love, because if I'm not giving advice from a loving place, it's not gonna go well, because it's hard for me to hide it. Like, no, it's not my I don't know, I wouldn't say that. Yeah, it's hard for me to hide it, because I cannot entertain it. I can't entertain a mess. Okay? Anywho, let's go into good management of bad experiences leads to great growth. So we talked about my pain file. Let's jump to page 28, where he was like, how to turn your pain into gain. The first thing is choose a positive life stance, okay? Virginia Satir said, life is not the way it's supposed to be. It's the way it is. The way you cope with it is what makes the difference, okay? I feel like y'all should understand that by now if you listen to if you've been listening to this podcast. There's the second one, embrace and develop your creativity. I like what it said here. And listen to this story. It came with a story, and I want to read this to you. Listen closely. There's a story about a chicken farmer whose land was flooded nearly every spring. He didn't want to give up his farm and move, but when the water backed up into his land and flooded his chicken coops, it was always a struggle to get his chickens to higher ground. Some years he couldn't move fast enough and hundreds of his chickens drowned. After the worst spring he'd ever experienced and losing his entire flock, he came into the farmhouse and told his wife, I've had it. I can't afford to buy another place. I can't sell this one. I don't know what to do. Y'all know what his wife said? Buy ducks. That's who you need to be married to. You feel me? They're the type of friends you need. It said the people who make the most of bad experiences are the ones who find creative ways to meet them, like the farmer's wife in this story. They see possibilities within their problems. A lot of us, and this used to be me, would avoid the problem instead of facing it head on and finding a solution. Stop coming to me with problems. Well, let me rephrase that. You can come to me with problems, but I'm going to say don't focus on the problem. Let's focus on the solution. Okay? Once we figure out what the problem is, ain't no point of, we can have a debrief on how not to get to the problem again, but I want us to spend more energy on the solution. You feel what I'm saying? It reminds me of the book, We Should All Be Millionaires. Rachel Rogers is like, a lot of times we focus on getting the debt down instead of putting energy on how to make more money to get rid of the debt. You feel me? Anywho, and remember, side note, there's good debt, there's bad debt, but that's a whole nother conversation. So check out, we did that book on the podcast as well. Okay, let's talk about number 3. Embrace the value of bad experiences. I like that. Okay, facing difficulties is inevitable. Learning from them is optional. So always find the value in those bad experiences. Number 4, make good changes after learning from bad experience. Diane Nadd says, I'm willing to put myself through anything. Temporary pain or discomfort means nothing to me as long as I can see that the experience will take me to a new level. I don't care what level you're at or what level you're going. There's going to be a level of pain, and it's only temporary pain and discomfort. The same as when you're building muscles and working out. It's temporary pain to get to a better result. Keep going. Number 5, take responsibility for your life. Okay? William Penn said, English philosopher, will encourage you: no pain, no palm, no thorns, no throne, no gale, no glory, no cross, no crown. Okay? So let me tell you, you can't get to the crown without carrying your cross. Do you hear what I'm saying? Okay? And taking responsibility of your life no matter what situation. I don't care whose fault it is. Find where you could have avoided and done better. Okay? So that was my highlights of chapter 8, the law of pain. And I absolutely love this book. It is really on time for the level of growth that I'm experiencing at this point in time. And so I want to thank you for listening to this week's episode. Before we get out of here, I'm going to give you guys the challenge of the week and the quote of the week. Remember, ain't no point of doing all this work and not listening to this and not doing the challenges to better yourself. Okay? The challenges are designed from the books that we read to catapult us into growth and changing our mindset. So, and I always put the full challenge in the show notes so you can copy and paste it onto paper and do the challenges, okay? Share your challenge, share your outcomes with me. I would love to know, are these helping you? Okay, page 2. Not page 2. I forgot. I wrote it on my notes, but I don't have it highlighted in here. Let me see if I can find it. It's a May waking room. If I can find it. It's about systems. Number 2. Okay, sorry. 1 second, y'all. I just need to fix this. I'm sorry. Give me a break. Yeah. Okay, so the challenge of the week comes from page 119 from the end of chapter 7, apply the law of design for your life. Number 2, it says, begin developing or refining system for yourself that will maximize your time and increase your efficiency. Brainstorm a list of areas where you desire to improve or experiencing a problem or sensing an opportunity. Try to create a system to help you for each. As you design them, make sure that each takes its account the following. The big picture. Will the system help you reach your big picture goals? Your priorities. Is the system consistent with your values and commitments? Measurement. Does the system give you a tangible way to judge if you've succeeded? Application. Does the system have a built-in bias towards action? Organization. Does the system make better use of your time than what you're doing now? Consistency. Can and will you easily repeat the system on a regular basis? He says, don't be reluctant to make adjustments to systems you developed or even abandon them if they don't serve you well. However, you may want to try out any system you develop for at least 3 weeks, the normal time needed to start developing a positive habit, because elevating is validity. Okay? So that just came to my spirit. Don't be afraid to just give up on something that's not working. Okay? And people say, well, how do I know when to give up? My best advice is to take a moment, fast, really speak to God about what you need to be doing. Because I'm pretty sure he already told you. You just pushing forward on your own merit. All right? That's the last point I'm going to make. So, let's end with the quote of the week. I picked 2 quotes because I just couldn't decide. They were both so good to me. They spoke to me. The first quote of the week comes from page 106 by Fred Allen that was featured in the book. You only live once. But if you work it right, once is enough. Okay? I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. I hate when I mess up. I do, y'all. I really hate when I mess up. Uh-oh. Let me say that again. You are only living once. But if you work it right, once is enough. Page 109 says, by Michael Gerber, author of E-Myth, says that systems permit ordinary people to achieve extraordinary results predictably. However, without a system, even extraordinary people find it difficult to achieve even ordinary results. Okay? So I would say, be predictable, sis. Go out there, put your systems in place because you only live once. All right? Thanks for hanging with the Crew Book Club podcast. I will see y'all right here next week. Hey!